All right, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about a really powerful idea around choice and hardship. We're all kind of taught to run away from pain, to find the most comfortable path. But what if that's all wrong? What if the biggest lie we've ever been told is that hardship is the bad guy? What if pain isn't the thing holding you back, but the actual fuel for your progress?
So let's kick things off with a pretty radical question. Is all pain a choice? Now, the source material makes a really bold claim here. It says that pain, well, it's inevitable. It doesn't care who you are, what you do, or how much you plan. You're going to face challenges. But, and this is so important, you get to decide what kind of pain you're going to deal with.
Because life basically gives us two main options. On one hand, you've got the pain of discipline. You know what this feels like. It's the effort, the grind, the sacrifice of getting up early and just putting in the work. And then on the other side, you've got the pain of regret. And that one, that's that heavy, sinking feeling of knowing you could have done more, but you just didn't. One leads to a reward, and the other, well, it leads to something a whole lot worse.
And that brings us perfectly to the core idea of our first section here. Since hardship is going to show up no matter what, your only real power is in choosing which one you want. You can't just opt out of hard, but you can absolutely choose your hard.
I love how bluntly the source material puts it. Being broke, that's hard. But you know what? Building wealth is also hard. Staying exactly where you are, feeling stagnant, that's hard. But pushing yourself to grow, also hard. See, it's all hard. So the question isn't, how do I escape the hard stuff? It's, which hard is actually worth it for the life I want?
So here's the crucial point. The math is actually pretty simple, but it's so profound. When you take that inevitable pain and you add discipline to it, the result is a reward. That could be strength, a new skill, or success. But when you take that same pain and you add avoidance, the only thing you get is regret. One path gives you a future you can be proud of, the other just leaves you with that awful sting of what could have been.
Okay, so let's say you've picked your hard. You've chosen the path of discipline. How do you actually move forward? Well, you need the right kind of engine to power that growth. And, as you're about to see, that engine is something most of us have been taught our whole lives to be afraid of.
And that secret weapon is failure. The source material completely reframes this. It's not the end of the road, it's the start of adaptation and growth. It's that exact moment where you push past what you're currently capable of, and your body or your mind has no choice but to adjust, to get stronger. And this illustrates it perfectly. Think about it like a workout, right? You don't go to the gym to lift weights you can just toss around easily. No way! You push your muscles to the point of failure because that's where the strength is built. The lesson isn't in the easy reps, it's in that last one you can't quite finish. That's the magic spot.
See, winners don't actually avoid failure. They get that it's a critical part of the whole process. They're not scared of falling down because they know every single fall is a lesson in how to get back up stronger. Failing forward means that every stumble actually moves you closer to your goal, not further away.
Now, what's so cool about this is how it turns failure from this big, scary feeling into a real, actionable strategy. It's a loop, a system. You take the shot knowing you might miss. You experience the failure, but without judging yourself. Then you pull the lesson out of it, apply that new wisdom, and then, this is the most important part, you do it all over again. You take another shot. That is the rhythm of progress.
Now, embracing this cycle of failure takes a special kind of mindset, and it's illustrated brilliantly by the story of the ultimate underdog. Someone who is living proof that where you start has absolutely nothing to do with where you can end up. Just look at Tom Brady's early career. I mean, this is not the story of some child prodigy. This is the story of a guy who was constantly overlooked. He was the backup quarterback on a high school team that didn't win a single game. Not one. Then in college, he had to fight tooth and nail for his starting job all the way into his final year.
And then came the NFL draft. 190 other players were picked before him. He was the 199th pick. Let that sink in. It's just this powerful, stark reminder that his legendary success wasn't a gift. It was earned, one painful step at a time.
And here he is, in his own words, explaining why he succeeded. Brady knew his real advantage wasn't some flashy, God-given talent. It was the stuff that doesn't make the headlines. A completely relentless work ethic and an unbreakable discipline that he built over years and years.
You know, this connects perfectly to another key idea, this time from Matthew McConaughey. He argues that the second we get too impressed with our own accomplishments, the trophies, the titles, we stop growing. The real key is to shift your focus away from the prize and onto the process itself.
When you learn to love the work,
The practice, the prep, the daily grind, the destination starts to matter less. You end up performing at your absolute best because you're not distracted by the jumbotron. You're not thinking about the finish line. You're just totally lost in the joy of what you're doing right now.
So if the finish line isn't the actual goal, then what are we all chasing? This final idea from the source material is amazing. It reframes the entire journey.
McConaughey tells this story about being asked a really simple question, but his answer gives us this powerful framework for lifelong motivation. See, it's not about looking up to someone else, it's about creating your own internal compass.
His hero was a future version of himself. So 10 years later, someone asked him, "Hey, are you your hero now?" And he said, "Not even close." Why? Because his hero was now him at 35. His target was always moving, always just a little bit out of reach, constantly pulling him forward.
And this just brilliantly illustrates the idea of an immortal finish line. The race is never over. The journey never really ends. The goal isn't to finally get somewhere and just stop. The goal is to always be on the way. And that mindset, it keeps you hungry, it keeps you humble, and it keeps you forever chasing a better version of yourself.
So that leaves us with one final, powerful question to think about for your own journey. If you choose your heart, and you embrace failure, and you fall in love with the process, who is that future version of yourself that you are constantly, relentlessly, and maybe even joyfully chasing?